In a dramatic turn of events, the long-standing tensions between India and Pakistan flared into armed conflict last week, prompting urgent diplomatic intervention from the United States. Following a deadly terrorist attack in Kashmir that killed 26 people, the two nuclear-armed neighbors engaged in intense hostilities, exchanging missile fire and escalating fears of a broader war. However, through a series of high-stakes negotiations led by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Vice President J.D. Vance, a ceasefire was announced on Saturday, May 10, 2025. The ceasefire agreement, which both countries confirmed, was hailed as a significant diplomatic achievement. President Donald Trump, who touted the U.S. mediation efforts, stated, "After a long night of talks mediated by the United States, I am pleased to announce that India and Pakistan have agreed to a full and immediate ceasefire." Rubio echoed Trump's sentiment, commending both Prime Ministers Narendra Modi of India and Shehbaz Sharif of Pakistan for their willingness to engage in dialogue. He remarked, "This is a crucial step towards peace in a region that has seen too much conflict." Despite the optimism surrounding the ceasefire, the situation took an immediate turn as reports emerged of continued skirmishes. Indian officials accused Pakistan of violating the agreement, claiming they were responding to provocations from across the border. India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri stated the ceasefire is being violated by Pakistan. "This intrusion is extremely condemnable." Conversely, Pakistan's foreign ministry countered that it was India that initiated hostilities, emphasizing its commitment to the ceasefire. The conflicting narratives underscored the fragility of peace in a region marked by decades of animosity and mistrust. The backdrop to this escalation was a series of attacks that began with the April 22 terror incident in Kashmir, for which India holds Pakistan responsible, a claim that Islamabad vehemently denies. The ensuing violence led to a significant military response from India, which included missile strikes targeting what it described as terrorist camps within Pakistan. The retaliatory strikes, which resulted in civilian casualties, ignited a cycle of retaliatory violence that heightened international concern over a possible war between the two nations. As the situation unfolded, international observers noted the critical role played by the U.S. in brokering the ceasefire. Rubio's diplomatic engagements included discussions with senior officials from both countries aiming to facilitate a peaceful resolution. However, the U.S. response has not been without its critics. Some Indian officials downplayed the extent of U.S. mediation, asserting that the ceasefire was primarily a bilateral agreement between India and Pakistan. This claim was echoed by India's Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, which stated that the stoppage of firing and military action was worked out directly between the two countries, despite the contrasting acknowledgments from Pakistan's leadership thanking the U.S. for its involvement. Tensions remained palpable even after the ceasefire announcement, as local leaders in Kashmir reported hearing explosions in the region shortly thereafter, raising questions about the durability of the agreement. Adamant about de-escalation, Indian military officials reiterated their commitment to peace provided that Pakistan reciprocated. Meanwhile, Pakistan's leadership expressed skepticism about India's intentions, with Defense Minister Khawaja Asif indicating a lack of trust in Indian assurances. Adding an unexpected twist to the unfolding narrative, tech billionaire Elon Musk responded to Rubio's announcement on social media, simply tweeting congratulations. Musk's involvement, while largely symbolic, reflects the broader interest in the geopolitical developments surrounding the India-Pakistan conflict, especially given the potential implications for regional stability. As the dust settles on this latest round of conflict, the international community is closely monitoring the situation. The United States, having positioned itself as a key mediator, faces the challenge of ensuring that the ceasefire holds and that both nations engage in constructive dialogue to address the underlying issues fueling their long-standing rivalry. The future remains uncertain, but the recent events highlight the precarious balance of power in South Asia and the urgent need for sustained diplomatic efforts to foster lasting peace in a region that has seen far too much bloodshed. In a stunning turn of events, Cecily Strong made a surprise return to Saturday Night Live SNL this weekend, much to the delight of fans and cast members alike. Her appearance came during a skit that humorously mocked notable figures such as Jeanine Pirro and Pete Hegseth, underscoring SNL's continued relevance in the landscape of American political satire. Strong's return was not merely a nostalgic moment, it was strategically timed against a backdrop of controversy surrounding Hegseth currently serving as the U.S. Secretary of Defense. The former television personality has faced severe backlash for alleged plagiarism in his senior thesis at Princeton University, as reported by the Daily Princetonian. The investigation revealed 8 instances of uncredited material raising questions about his academic integrity. Among the most notable examples was a passage that closely mirrored an article from the Washington Post, showcasing the troubling ease with which Hegseth appears to have appropriated someone else's work without proper attribution. The debate among experts regarding the severity of these violations reflects broader issues of accountability and standards within political and academic spheres. This scrutiny of Hegseth's academic record coincides with growing concerns about his decision-making at the Pentagon. Critics have lambasted his abrupt termination of the Women, Peace and Security WPS program, which aimed to incorporate women's perspectives in peacekeeping and military operations. Hegseth's dismissal of the program as woke and divisive sparked outrage among advocates for gender equality in military contexts. Abhi Finkinar and Dr. Geeta Rao Gupta, co-founders of the Alliance for Diplomacy and Justice, penned a scathing op-ed in response to Hegseth's actions, arguing that undermining such initiatives not only jeopardizes military effectiveness but also endangers the safety of troops. They emphasized that the inclusion of women in decision-making processes has been empirically shown to enhance outcomes in conflict zones, making a compelling case for the continuation of WPS. As if that were not enough, the political landscape has further shifted with Donald Trump's recent appointment of Jeanine Pirro to a prominent legal role as the top federal prosecutor for Washington, D.C. Critics quickly pointed out that Pirro's qualifications are questionable at best, drawing parallels to Hegseth's own controversial appointment to the defense secretary position. Her track record of unwavering loyalty to Trump rather than legal expertise seems to be the determining factor in her selection. This pattern raises concerns about the qualifications of individuals in key government positions and reflects a troubling trend of prioritizing loyalty over competence. The interplay of these developments is indicative of a larger narrative about the current administration's approach to governance. With Hegseth's dubious academic past, the dismantling of critical programs like WPS, and the appointment of unqualified individuals like Pirro, a clear picture emerges. The administration's focus appears to be less about effective governance and more about maintaining a loyal base irrespective of qualifications. As the political landscape continues to evolve, it remains to be seen how these controversies will impact public perception and policy moving forward. The juxtaposition of Strong's comedic return to SNL against such serious political undertones highlights the necessity of satire in holding power to account for viewers and citizens alike. The stakes are high as they navigate an increasingly polarized environment where the intersection of politics and media will undoubtedly shape the future of American governance. In an increasingly complex political landscape, the intersection of parenting and public health has emerged as a critical battleground. As the nation grapples with rising costs of child-rearing and a resurgence of vaccine-preventable diseases, the recent policies of the Trump administration have ignited a wave of concern among parents. This scenario has brought to light a unique opportunity for the Democratic Party, which is now tasked with navigating the raw emotions and fears of American families. Recent reports suggest that the prices of essential baby gear such as strollers and car seats have skyrocketed, largely as a consequence of President Trump's tariff policies. At the same time, the administration's stance on vaccines, particularly during a troubling measles outbreak, has created anxiety among parents. Virginia nursing student Trinity Chisholm, 23, expressed her concerns, stating, "It just feels like it's preying on parents' insecurities and fears," referring to the administration's approach to vaccination amidst rising measles cases. The Democratic Party finds itself at a crossroads as it seeks to capitalize on this climate of fear and frustration. Former Representative Colin Allred, considering a Senate bid in Texas, where a significant measles outbreak is ongoing, remarked on the palpable anxiety among parents. His non-political friends, typically uninterested in political matters, have reached out in distress asking, "What the hell is going on?" This shifting dynamic poses a challenge for Democrats, who have historically been less adept than Republicans at harnessing parental emotions to drive political engagement. In recent elections, Republican candidates have successfully tapped into parental concerns. The 2021 Virginia gubernatorial race was a prime example, where fears surrounding pandemic-era education propelled them to victory. Similarly, the emergence of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a health secretary with a controversial stance on vaccines, has complicated the Democratic narrative. Exit polls from the last election cycle indicated that Trump had made significant inroads with parents of young children, a demographic that had previously leaned Democratic. Interviews with parents, pediatricians, and politicians reveal a potential opening for Democrats to reconnect with this critical voter base. State Senator Nabila Islam Parks of Georgia noted the genuine panic among parents in Facebook groups, stating, "When you are shutting down safe-to-sleep campaigns and you are undermining the trust in our vaccination programs, this is a cause for grave concern." Such sentiments highlight the urgency for Democratic candidates to articulate a clear and effective response to parents' fears about public health under the current administration. As the nation faces one of the worst measles outbreaks in decades, lawmakers like Representative Brittany Pedersen of Colorado are weighing their options. With a newborn at home, she acknowledges the terrifying reality of protecting infants too young to be vaccinated. "I'm hopeful that parents will start mobilizing," she said, recognizing the power of collective action. The concern is not just about measles. It's a broader reflection of parental anxiety regarding the administration's handling of public health. Critics of the Trump administration's approach argue that it undermines trust in essential health measures. Dr. Kim Schreier, a pediatrician and U.S. representative, labeled Kennedy as anti-science and anti-vaccine, emphasizing the need for a united front against misinformation. Yet Kennedy maintains a loyal following, particularly among wellness influencers who promote his views within social media circles, complicating the Democrats' efforts to counteract his influence. The rising cost of parenting is another front in this political battle. With families feeling the pinch from Trump's economic policies, Democrats are eager to highlight how these changes affect everyday life. Senator Ruben Gallego of Arizona described the tariff policies as a baby tax, while Representative Hillary Scholten of Michigan criticized Trump's dismissive comments regarding children's toy availability as emblematic of an administration out of touch with working families. As the political climate continues to evolve, the Democratic Party faces a critical opportunity to re-engage with parents across the nation. The emotional landscape surrounding health, safety, and economic stability presents a unique chance for candidates who can effectively communicate their understanding of these issues. The challenge remains: can Democrats articulate a coherent and compelling response to the fears and frustrations that parents are experiencing, or will they remain overshadowed by a Republican narrative that has successfully captured this vital demographic? As the 2026 elections approach, the answers to these questions may well determine the political fortunes of both parties in the years to come. In an extraordinary and contentious legal battle, 26-year-old Luigi Mangione, accused of murdering United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, has sought to have the death penalty removed from consideration in his case. This plea comes against a backdrop of heightened political tensions, particularly with Attorney General Pam Bondi's recent announcement advocating for the death penalty as part of a broader agenda under the Trump administration aimed at combating violent crime. Mangione's legal team has filed a motion in a Manhattan federal court arguing that the government's pursuit of the death penalty constitutes a political stunt. They contend that Bondi's public declarations have prejudiced potential jurors against their client. The United States government intends to kill Mr. Mangione as a political stunt, the motion states, highlighting concerns about the fairness of his trial amidst such inflammatory rhetoric. Thompson, a respected figure in the health insurance industry and a father of two, was fatally shot outside a Manhattan hotel in December 2024. Following a manhunt, Mangione was apprehended in Pennsylvania and he now faces both federal and state charges, with the federal case carrying the possibility of capital punishment. His attorneys have emphasized that Mangione has led an exemplary life, citing his achievements as a valedictorian and a dedicated family member. Mr. Mangione's background reveals an exemplary life in every respect, they asserted, hoping to counter the narrative that has emerged following the tragic incident. Bondi's statement on April 1, where she expressed her intent to seek the death penalty in alignment with President Trump's crime-fighting agenda, has drawn significant scrutiny. Critics argue that her approach not only disregards established Justice Department protocols for capital cases but also risks further politicizing the judicial process. Legal experts note that her comments could severely impact the integrity of jury selection and the overall fairness of the trial. As the case unfolds, it has garnered an unusual amount of public attention and support for Mangione. A fundraising campaign to cover his legal expenses has reportedly amassed over $850,000, reflecting a burgeoning movement among individuals who have expressed dissatisfaction with the health insurance sector. This phenomenon underscores the intersection of personal tragedy and broader societal issues, as some see Mangione's case as emblematic of the frustrations felt toward the industry he is accused of targeting. In a broader context, the political ramifications of the case cannot be overlooked. The Trump administration's aggressive stance on crime, as articulated by figures like Bondi, raises questions about the role of politics in judicial processes. As the administration continues to push its agenda, including potential discussions around suspending habeas corpus, the implications for civil liberties and the rule of law remain profound. The unfolding situation in Mangione's case and the reactions it has provoked highlight the complexities of navigating justice in a politically charged environment. As the legal proceedings progress, the potential for significant impacts on public perception and policy surrounding capital punishment and criminal justice reform looms large. The coming weeks will be critical not only for Mangione and his legal team but also for the broader discourse on justice politics and the future of the death penalty in the United States. In a pivotal moment for international trade relations, U.S.-China tariff talks resumed in Geneva, with President Donald Trump proclaiming significant progress was made during the initial discussions. The meeting, which lasted over 10 hours, involved key figures such as Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer, alongside a delegation led by Chinese Vice Premier Hou Lifeng. Despite the lengthy negotiations, the absence of concrete breakthroughs left market observers cautiously optimistic. Great progress made, Trump declared on his Truth Social platform, indicating a potential total reset of trade relations between the two economic giants. He expressed a desire to foster greater openness in the Chinese market for American businesses, yet provided no specifics on the agreements reached. This vague assertion, while buoying hopes for de-escalation, reflects the complex dynamics at play in U.S.-China relations, particularly given the backdrop of escalating tariffs that have deeply affected global markets. The ongoing discussions come at a crucial juncture as tariffs imposed by both countries have skyrocketed, with U.S. tariffs on Chinese imports reaching an astonishing 145% and retaliatory tariffs from China at 125%. Such high tariffs essentially amount to a trade boycott, significantly impacting the $660 billion trade volume between the nations. Analysts suggest that even modest reductions in tariffs could signal a thawing of relations and ease market tensions. Sun Yun, director of the China program at the Stimson Center, emphasized that both sides must agree to de-escalation for any genuine progress to be observed. Meanwhile, the Milken Institute Global Conference provided a backdrop for discussions on economic policies, with Secretary Bessent reiterating Trump's America First agenda. During his address, Bessent underscored the importance of tariffs as a means to encourage domestic investment and job creation. Tariffs are engineered to encourage companies like yours to invest directly in the United States, he stated, framing the administration's economic strategy as a comprehensive approach to drive long-term investment. The conference, which gathers influential figures from finance, technology, and politics, also highlighted the broader implications of trade tensions. With over 200 sessions and 1,000 speakers, the event sought to address pressing global issues including economic inequality and technological advancement. Notably, participants included prominent executives like NVIDIA's CEO Jensen Huang and hedge fund mogul Bill Ackman, who have both been vocal on the need for a constructive trade relationship with China. As the discussions in Geneva continue, the stakes remain high for both nations and the global economy at large. The outcome of these talks could redefine trade relations and impact industries and markets on both sides of the Pacific. Analysts are closely watching for any developments that could hint at a resolution to the long-standing disputes over tariffs and technology policies. Looking ahead, the potential for a restructured trade agreement hinges on the ability of both nations to navigate their complex relationship and prioritize mutual economic interests. As negotiations unfold, the global community waits with bated breath, hoping for a resolution that could stabilize not only U.S.-China relations but also the broader economic landscape affected by these two powerhouses. In a recent series of statements, U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick addressed several pressing economic issues, including the continuation of tariffs and the complexities surrounding international trade negotiations, particularly with India and China. His comments come at a time when the American economy faces significant challenges, and his assurances may offer both clarity and contention in the public discourse about trade. Lutnick confirmed that the 10% tariffs currently in place would remain, stating these tariffs are not going anywhere but consumers will not bear the brunt of their impact. This assertion aims to alleviate concerns among American consumers about rising prices on imported goods, a common fear when tariffs are enacted. However, the reality of how tariffs affect consumer pricing is often more nuanced than such claims suggest, leading to skepticism among economists and market analysts. The Secretary's remarks also touched upon the ongoing negotiations for a trade deal with India, which he suggested might take longer than expected. "We are committed to a fair and equitable trade agreement, but these things take time," Lutnick noted, highlighting the complexities involved in reaching consensus between two large economies with distinct priorities. The U.S.-India trade relationship has been under scrutiny, and the path forward appears fraught with challenges. On the subject of negotiations with China, Lutnick emphasized the administration's objective of securing better trade practices. "Our goal is to ensure that American businesses can compete fairly in the global market," he said. This statement reflects a broader sentiment within the U.S. government that has characterized its approach to China, seeking to address trade imbalances and intellectual property issues that have long been points of contention. As Lutnick navigates these discussions, he faces criticism regarding his close ties to former President Donald Trump, with some commentators mocking his fervent praise of Trump during recent public appearances. This dynamic raises questions about the objectivity of his stance and the potential influence of political affiliations on trade policy. Nevertheless, Lutnick's role as Commerce Secretary requires a balance of political acumen and economic foresight as he manages the intricacies of U.S. trade policy. The implications of Lutnick's statements are significant. The persistence of tariffs could impact supply chains and the overall economic landscape in the U.S. and beyond. While the length of negotiations with India and China may shape future trade relations for years to come, as businesses and consumers alike brace for what may be a protracted period of uncertainty, the effectiveness of the government's strategies will come under increasing scrutiny. Looking ahead, it remains to be seen how these trade negotiations will unfold and what tangible impacts they will have on the U.S. economy. Should Lutnick's predictions hold true, we can expect ongoing discussions and potentially contentious debates over tariffs, international trade agreements, and their implications for American consumers and businesses alike. The coming months will be pivotal as stakeholders across various sectors observe the outcomes of these crucial negotiations.